are you feeling, Joe?
A bit nervous. My first march.
Brilliant. And you there with your placard?
Yeah.
Loving it. So, where have you come from and why are you here tonight?
I'm from Brighton, south of England. I'm here because we're still unsafe. 1 in 4 women are attacked or experience sexual violence during their lifetime, and 1 in 2 women with disabilities experience it, which I think is shocking.
Thank you. And you?
Hi, I'm from Lincolnshire and I'm here just to celebrate how important it is that we come together and reclaim the streets and be part of a big united effort to try and make sure that sexual violence is still happening and is still acceptable in society.
Thank you. And you?
My name's Rachel and I live in Tottenham in London, and one of the reasons I'm here is because I think it's terrible the cuts to the services that are there for women when they experience sexual violence.
And you?
Hi, I'm Sheila. I'm from Hong Kong. I'm here to support the cause and to basically remember those who have been really affected by, domestic violence at home or sexual abuse. I just want to show them that we're here and we care.
Representing the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. We're an international women's organisation that have been working for freedom and women's rights since 1915. Now, at the present moment, violence against women is reaching incredible heights. Particularly, you'll know the situation in Congo, where we have a section, because we've got sections across the world, and the use of rape as a weapon of war has become stratospheric, you might say. It is just one of the worst developments. And now we're hearing within our own society here how in quite ordinary places children are being abused by people with power. So it's an issue around patriarchy and men with power and women having to suffer, and of course in some communities it's much more difficult for them to stand up, so we stand out here where we can.
And how many marches have you been on out of interest, if you can remember?
Well, I was on the very first of the renewed one that Finn Mackay started. I have missed 1 or 2 on the way for various reasons, but I'm here today.
That's brilliant. I'm just going to go across and have a look at your banner because it is amazing.
I think actually personally it's just a really great way of sort of hanging out with lots of women who have a message.
Okay.
And solidarity. For a cause, and to make a stand against ending violence against women.
Thank you. And you guys? Have you ever been on a march before?
You're terrible because of the same reasons, but mainly because I want to show the world and people from London that I'm not for these kinds of acts and that I am here to fight for our rights. That's it.
That's brilliant, thank you. I'm just going to film your placards, it's pretty cool.
My name's Laura and I've come from Croydon, and I'm here supporting the march because I think that in today's society it's unacceptable to have the same level of violence we have towards women.
I'm Laura from South East London, but we're all part of the Borough Bells WI.
Okay.
Which is local WI in South East London.
Hi.
Hi.
And what have you come here tonight for?
We've been meaning to come actually for a couple of years, but we're really here, I think, because obviously one of the core campaigns of the WI is about violence to stop violence against women, so we feel that Reclaim the Night has a lot of synergies with that.
Oh yeah, I didn't expect it to start that way around.
I like looking at all the banners.
Safe streets! In November 1977, women took back their city centres with flaming torches, songs and defiance. And decades on, here we are, still marching. Because we haven't yet reached a destination where victims are not blamed for crimes perpetrated against them. Because we haven't yet built a society where survivors are not silenced. Because our world is not yet one where women and children are believed. And in fact, here we are, in the midst of a crisis. But I don't mean the BBC. I don't mean its chains of command, its middle management, or its position in the media marketplace. I mean the crisis that is patriarchy or male supremacy, the symptoms of which we have caught a glimpse of in recent months, as epidemic levels of child abuse and rape have been documented in the light of day for once, albeit briefly. And meanwhile, our politicians are rushing to give advice on how our media should be managed, worried about our supposed finest national asset. But I can think of more important national institutions, like our ethics, our hearts, our semblance of justice in this country. These should be the issues our society is worried about as child rapists and sex abusers stalk our corridors of power, our cultural institutions, and indeed our own communities, apparently with impunity. But meanwhile, what about the proud legacy won for us by our women's liberation movement? Who is speaking out for our refuges, our helplines, our rape crisis centres? It is time it was recognised that these are national treasures. Now we know that these hard-won provisions are facing destruction and we cannot afford to lose them, for they are a lifeline for those affected by the violence and abuse that we have seen unfolding in our news and which many of you may understand personally. Too many in positions of power are too ready to look on while others abuse and say nothing. And even more are too ready to view as normal and acceptable the everyday objectification and exploitation of women and children. We know that abusers rely on this environment. They rely on survivors not speaking out or not being believed when they do. And these abusers should not be called paedophiles. They should be called what they are, which is rapists and child sex abusers. Because rape is not a disease, it's a crime. And those men who choose to abuse are not ill, though they do rely on the sickness of society. And mainstream culture seems determined to believe that such abuse cannot happen, while disbelieving those brave survivors who testify to the fact that it does, and that however we cover it in our media will not change the fact that it happened, and that it is happening now. Now, we may not be able to change this overnight. We may not be able to stop violence and abuse anytime soon, but we can certainly change the silencing culture which facilitates those who abuse. And for all those survivors, for those in this room tonight, we all wish for healing, we all wish for recovery, but also we wish for justice. And because there is never only one so-called bad apple, I hope there are many men sat at home now in their fading glory, waiting for the police to knock at the door, and I hope they come to know the real meaning of the word shame. The shame they try to put onto you while they abuse the vulnerable. The same shame that those in positions of power and influence talk about so sagely, saying that is what stops you from speaking while they silence you at the same time. The very same shame on which our culture tries to blame the fact that nothing changes, while those in a position to change it do nothing. And they say that survivors are affected by shame. Well, I want to know, where the hell is theirs? necessary as ever. And although we may not get to march with flaming torches anymore, like our sisters did before us, it's a health and safety issue, you know, tonight activists like you have kept that flame alive. And the work you do, the stand you take, and the difference our movement makes clears a small path of light in the darkness, one woman at a time. Now we know that next year will bring new challenges, not least defending our legacy of women's services and the welfare state that used to so proudly define our country. And feminism has a lot to offer to these struggles. There are answers and directions in our history, our politics, and our theory. An analysis of why our system is the way it is missing from most debates. Yet if we don't name what is wrong, we cannot begin to heal. Feminism has studied power for centuries, just as women around the world stare that power in the face every day, be it poverty, violence or war, environmental destruction, harassment or rape, or the commonplace images and messages that tell us we are nothing, or lesser, or are defined by our sex alone. This is a kind of power for which women and children too often pay the price. It is a power we literally can no longer afford. So in our times of austerity, there is one saving we can afford to make. We can cut patriarchy and save the world.